welcome to our show. Today we're very fortunate to have a member of the Sheehan family with us, Bernice Sheehan McFadden. And she's going to tell us a lot about an old farming family in our community. We're very glad to have you here, Bernice.
Well, thank you very much.
People have often wondered about Sheehan Road. I know it's had other names. When you look at old manuscripts, they call it Beetle Station Road. Then later it's called Shaker Road because it went down to the old Shaker community at Union Village, now Otterbein Home. But the name was changed to your family name. Can you tell us why?
Well, it just so happened that my great-grandmother, who was Susan Pine, married James Sheehan. We most generally say Shin now, but Sheehan, and she had 5 boys and 1 daughter in this house on Shin Road, which is almost across from the Wilson Cement Factory.
All right, you brought a picture of that house. I think I can show it. People who drive up and down Shin Road or Sheehan Road, however you're going to pronounce it, can still see this house standing.
Yes, it still stands.
And well, wouldn't name a road after just one family.
No, it happened that 2 or 3 of the boys bought land across the road and to the south of the homestead. And at one time, there were 17 Shins that lived on Shin Road.
17 Shins. Well, that's an awful big family. Now, I have a map that you brought that kind of shows how the Sheehans really had monopolized this road. And I think people can see how you can get a road named after yourself. Maybe you can look and see. We can explain to people a little about all of these farms here. I don't know if it shows up too well. Here's Sheehan Road coming up here. Now it turns and goes into 48. Down here is Social Row Road, and here would be Bierman's up here. But the road...
That's correct.
How many Sheehans are on this?
Well, at one time 17. That included some of the boys that married and had children, like Al married and had 4 children, and my grandfather married and stayed with his mother since my grandfather's father died when he was 9 months old, so she raised him. And then the other uncles had land, like Charles.
All right, here's Charles Sheehan.
And then my grandfather, Elmer Shin, had land.
Elmer, and
then he was living with Aunt Mary, or no.
Here's Aunt Mary.
That's Aunt Mary. No, she was a maiden lady who never married, but she was a governess for some cousins in Cincinnati, and she saved her money and bought the land where the spring house stands. Down near Social Row Road. But her farm joined Susan and James.
And then you have it written here that another one was a farmer down in Waynesville, and one is further south on
Yankee Street.
Yankee Street.
Milton.
Well, now you said Dirth and Rhea started their married life here on the standing farmhouse. Is that where you were born?
No, I was born in Warren County, just over the line.
Just below Social Row Road?
Yes.
Okay.
The name changed to Bunnell Hill at the county line.
But it's still Sheehan Road?
Well, it's a continuation of Sheehan Road.
Okay.
But my sister and I were born down there on a large farm.
Well, let's go back and find a little bit about all these Sheehans. I like this picture in particular because there's such a wonderful old lady in the middle of it. And she has these handsome young men standing around her. Who is this?
Well, the lady is my grandmother, and she was 80 years old the day this picture was taken, and that's her 5 sons. And my grandfather stands just behind her.
Okay, this would be your grandfather right here?
Yes,
Elmer, right? All right. And this was taken in 1912. All right, your grandfather's there, And when he married who?
Clara Crockett from Springboro.
Clara Crockett. And you brought a marriage record here that I find kind of interesting, because it says on it, Susan Sheehan, mother of said Elmer Sheehan, in writing on file, she gave consent for the wedding. That's an interesting marriage certificate.
Yes,
What is the date?
1870. No, wait a minute.
Where is that? Here it is.
1870.
1894.
That's right.
Okay.
1894. I got that out of Warren County, the historical records down there is where I found that.
Okay, well, good. You really have done a good job of looking up the genealogy of your family. All right, now that was your grandfather, and here he is in this picture. This is the family after...
When they were growing up, it was a family photo.
And this has your father in it, doesn't it?
Yes, the tall man in the back.
So this tall one is your father. He's a very handsome man. What was his name?
Charles Dirth.
Charles Dirth.
And Charles comes from Charles Crockett, and Dirth comes from a family name of Charles' second wife, who married Cornelia Crockett. So he was given names from his grandparents.
All right. So your grandmother's was a Crockett.
Yes. She was a daughter of Charles and Melissa Crockett.
Any relation to the famous Crockett?
Yes, I'm afraid we are.
Oh, that's...
Charles Crockett, my grandmother's father, was a son of Marmaduke Crockett, and he was born and raised around Springboro. He is buried there with one son, I believe. And then Marmaduke's father was Andrew, who was a brother to Davy Crockett's father, John. So that's the lineage. So
on both sides of your family, going back, you've got a lot of Crockett's. I like this early picture you brought of your great-grandmother. I hope it shows up. Susan Pine Crockett.
No,
this is when she's a young girl?
That's Susan Shin as a young girl. Susan Pine. Susan Pine Shin.
Now, Pine is an old name around here, too, because they came very early, I think before the 1800s. Some of the Pines were here. What was that first Pine, her father?
Her father was named Simeon.
Simeon Pine.
Simeon Pine, and he built the house where Harold Winston lives, where Harold, he passed away this spring.
Now that's still standing on Spring Valley, Harold Winston's farm. And he built that one. That's very interesting to know. All right, we've got a kind of a genealogy picture set here. You do a good job with your genealogy. Who are all these?
All right, in the upper left-hand corner is Marmaduke Crockett.
Okay, now Marmaduke would have been like a nephew to Davy Crockett.
Yes, I think so. And his wife Jane is beside him, and then come the sons, their sons, Mordecai, Oliver, daughter Ruth Evelyn, son Elmer, Mary, and then skip one. Then this comes my great-grandfather, Charles Crockett, and his second wife, Cornelia Dirth, and his son by his first wife, John. So this is Charles as a young man, and he married Melissa, my grandmother's mother, and she died when my grandmother was only 3 years old.
Oh, well then who raised?
A family of Earlys, her maternal grandparents in Miamisburg raised her. And then my great-grandfather Crockett remarried Cornelia Dirth. That's where the Dirth comes in.
The name Dirth. And these people are all farmers, right?
All farmers.
Well, I could see that heritage is passed on. Now, Elmer, we saw in that picture with his family, had a farm. Where was his farm located? Down?
After
just below?
Susan died and Aunt Mary died, he went south into Warren County, just over the line, and bought a large farm.
Just south of Social Railroad?
Yes, it's just north of Lytle 5 Points Road.
Okay.
And we went into the dairy business, Dad did, and grandfather in partnership.
Your dad worked too, okay.
In
now,
partnership.
He did something unusual. he brought an animal into the area that had not been seen before.
Yes, my grandfather had seen brown Swiss cattle at the Dayton stockyards way back in the early 1900s, and he always remembered this particular breed of cattle. He asked about it, and it was brown Swiss, and it had been imported from Switzerland. And they're large and they're rugged.
I've got a picture here of some. Well, here's some. He's got a whole herd here. Now,
yes.
Did they milk these cows?
Yes, they were very good milk producers. They had large quantity of butter fat in their milk, very rich. Of course, we don't want that now, but back then, it sold for more money because it was richer. So my grandfather and Dad went to Wheeling, West Virginia to start their herd, and he bought his start of cattle there. In fact, I think we made 2 trips to get cattle. And this was back in the 30s.
Back in the 30s.
And actually 20s. He started showing cattle at the fairs in the late 20s. 28, 29, and through 36.
Through the 30th. Well, we know he was successful. I look here and I see all of these ribbons, and on the table out here, more ribbons. You must have over 100 ribbons here.
They did quite well.
Now, you brought this picture of, looks like a big bull standing on a scale. Now, I didn't realize that farmers had scales on their farms.
Yes, that was, you could weigh cattle or trucks quite easily. It was a nice type of scale.
And this was a prize bull?
I think it was one. Yeah, we had 2 quite large like that.
So he really bred them too?
Yes, that was the main purpose, and sell to other farmers.
You had a funny picture I got a kick out of. I thought it was great. It shows a horse and a pig. It's a little hard to see the pig. He looks kind of black. But this was a special hog and a special horse.
Yes, when the hog, we'll call, was sold and went through the Dayton Union stockyards, the hog weighed 840 pounds, and it was the largest hog that had been sold at that time. And the reason the horse is in the picture is the horse weighed the same amount, weighed 840 pounds.
A hog that weighed what a horse weighed. Well, it must have brought a great deal of income to the family to have a hog like that, and people probably were very interested in having this pig sire.
Yes, that was the purpose of raising purebred livestock for stock.
You brought this news clipping. It says Dayton Journal, Monday, July 27th, 1936. Will you read us what it says on the front of this? And it's really long. I don't think we can get all this on the camera, but it shows a little girl, 2 little girls down here holding the cows.
2 brown Swiss cows, and in the center
What does it say?
Sightseeing tour of State Fair leads farmer to start herd of popular brown Swiss cows.
And who is this little girl?
Well, that happens to be me and my sister Jeanette, and that's Dad in the top photo with his spotted Poland China hog. And at that time we were raising purebred spotted Poland Chinas and purebred...
Spotted Poland Chinas. Those are pigs, hogs?
Hogs.
Hogs. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about how they registered these pigs?
Yes.
Or hogs, I should say.
Dad would get stock. He'd either raise his own or go to surrounding states and purchase stock that had good bloodlines in them. So they were the sires of all the little pigs that he had to sell. So as the pigs would be born, they would have litters. The sows would have litters of 10 to 15, and then it was Dad's job to keep track of these pigs.
How did he keep track of so many in a litter?
He had notches made he made notches in their ears with a knife, either in the top or the lower of the right ear or the top of the lower of the left ear, and had to keep track of the mother of these pigs and the father of these pigs. And the ones he was going to keep for brood stock that he would sell to neighbors or who, he had to send papers into Indianapolis where the what they call the National Spotted Poll and China record was kept. And I think we have a registered paper.
Yeah, you brought all these wonderful things in.
So each pig that was registered had one of these papers, and it listed the sire and the dam,
right,
how many pigs were in the litter, and the markings.
This is like they do for champion dogs or horses.
Probably.
And I don't think people realize that hogs and cattle also have papers that make them more valuable.
Very much.
Oh, and Gold Queen II. Interesting names you've picked. And it describes in here how you can recognize that one. I have a picture here of the farm you lived in that was on 48. You lived here with your father, Dirth, and Clara.
We moved,
or Rhea.
Rhea. We moved there in 1937.
It's a nice picture, aerial view. Yeah.
Yes, it was an aerial view. And that's when Dad and his father dissolved their partnership, and Dad then went to raising spotted poll and China hogs alone. And we raised them by the hundreds. And then when he got his herd built up, we started to have spring and fall sales to sell the stock. So we had people come from several states around, and they purchased each hog individually. We had an auctioneer. We had a clerk that tallied the...
Well, you brought us in here a book from 1949. It said Spotted Poll and China, Boar and Gilt. What's gilt?
That is a female hog.
That's a sow.
A young female hog.
All right. And it's a whole booklet, and in the front it has pictures. Inside the booklet. And this is in 1949.
49, on the front, does it say how many we had there, we sold, on the very front cover?
How many it sold?
On the very front, 60. That day we sold 60.
Okay, 60 head.
We sold as many as 80 at times, too.
Well, this book has every animal described, what percent is white, whether it's a boar or a gilt, names. So there must have been famous pig lines.
There was. His two best lines was out of a hog named Hero and another one called Gold Digger.
Well, that probably accounts for more of these.
Some of these are for pigs, but most of these are for the cattle.
Cow and pigs.
Yes.
Did you ever enter pigs in the fair?
I did once at Warren County. Yes.
Were you in the your father in the Grange?
Dad was a charter member at Springboro along with his sisters and brothers, and very active at that time in his early life. And then later Mother and Dad joined Centerville Grange, and they were still members when my dad passed away.
Where did the Centerville Grange meet?
In the town hall basement.
Oh, town hall basement. They're remodeling the town hall right now.
I see.
Well, that's interesting. In the front, it also mentions your name. It says you have some kind of a title here. There's fieldmen and auctioneers, and then it says clerks.
Yes, I studied under my uncle, Chess Crockett. He clerked Dad's first couple of sales, and I helped along. So finally, Dad says, I think you girls will be able to handle this. So we kept track of each hog that was sold, collected the money, gave out shipping cards that released them on the farm. We had a lot of people that helped us to handle that many. My uncles helped a lot, and gave a release for each hog as it was loaded on their truck and taken away. So we had a responsible job on those days.
And you don't look too old in that picture.
No.
You brought in something else. I'll just stick this in. It really wasn't just for farmers. Everybody, even in my family, during the early 1940s, had to have something like this. What is this?
That happens to be ration books. back during the early 40s, like you say. And these were issued at Springboro. We attended Springboro School, and I happened to be one of those selected in our high school to help issue these ration books. So we worked in the afternoons, and all the people in around the county would come in and get the ration books for sugar, meat.
Okay, it has your father's name on the front here. It has your mother's name on some. It even has, you used to have age, sex, weight, height, so that people wouldn't cheat.
That's right.
And inside were all these stamps.
Yes, now most of those that are there are meat stamps because we did not need meat. But we did need shoes and sugar. So something kind of strange, Mother got acquainted with our white baking company man. So on the side, we would give him meat stamps, and he would let us have some shoe stamps.
I think people used to exchange these stamps a lot.
Yes, I think they did.
I know my dad would give us a gasoline stamp for dates once in a while if he had some left over. Well, war ration books, that's kind of interesting. I'm glad you saved these. Now, your father's family interested me. The one that had him, and the two sisters, and your brother Dirth here, and his mother and father, Clara and Elmer. They took a trip that so surprised me. When I read this diary, I couldn't believe it. This is something that should be published. It's so detailed. And the person who wrote it used beautiful English and spelling. Hard to believe it. A little country girl did this.
She didn't go to college.
What is this?
This is a diary that my grandmother wrote in 1907 when they went to the Jamestown Exposition at Newport News. And I think
in Virginia?
Virginia. And they also went on to Washington, I believe. And she kept this diary day by day, and took along my dad, who was only 13, I think we figured up 13 or 14, and my aunt, who was only 4. Aunt Swella was only 4 years old.
I know it said they went on by train from Dayton to Cincinnati and then through West Virginia. Her description of going along the rivers and the tunnels. But the best thing is she described the crops. Of course, she's a farmer's wife. She told all about the landscaping and the trees and plants.
She loved nature. She truly did.
She's very, very observant.
Really was, and she wrote the way she wrote it is so nice.
It's very nice. And then you brought this, and you said this is a postcard. I would like you to come in on this. It says, "You need more power," and it shows a funny man pulling an old-fashioned car out. Then it says Jamestown Exposition. What is this?
It's a leather card.
A postcard?
Leather postcard that Dad wrote to his Uncle Chess, and he lived at Crockett. He lived in Franklin at the time, and he addressed this from Newport News. Show
the back of this, because it still has the stamp on from 1907. And it's very readable. It's a wonderful condition. A leather postcard. And then this was, I really was impressed with that diary. And what is this one?
That is another postcard. It says "Greetings from Centerville, Ohio" on the front. And that's a card that my dad wrote to his uncle, Chess, when Chess was in college at Delaware, attending Ohio Wesleyan. And the contents in that say that at that time, Dad and his father and family, they had, 15 head of horses and I think 30 head of cattle.
15 and 30 head.
And that was in I don't remember the
1911.
1911. So he was only about 17 years old then.
That's about when that one picture was taken here, I would suppose.
Shortly. Before he graduated.
All right, you have an interesting document there.
Okay.
I'll open it and then you tell me what all it said.
This is my dad's graduation diploma from Centerville High School in 1912, May 18th.
Do you want to tell us about where the high school was?
Yes, the high school then was, which later became the Wishing Well Inn, and since then it has had several other businesses there. But that's where he attended high school, and he's talked about it many times.
I would say this is a very fancy diploma for a little small farming community. It's certainly more elaborate than the ones you have today.
Yes, I
really marvelous.
I hope to frame that.
Yeah. Well, I hope you do someday. Well, this has certainly been wonderful. We have so many more pictures we could have shown. I think if people want to see them, they can go to Walton House. And because you've got marvelous pictures of farm life that I don't think many people have saved over the time. And we have one big picture of your family that we're going to show at the end, that show all the Sheehans around Susan Pine Sheehan. I want to thank you for coming. I could talk to you for a long time.
Well, thank you, Janet. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning us in.